Welcome to episode 6 of the Loane Hockey Podcast. And today we're going to be talking about former Chicago Steel forward, former Boston University Terrier, and current San Jose Shark and first overall pick in the 2024 NHL draft, Macklin Celebrini. And with Macklin, what's really intriguing about his game is just his overall skill set is very phenomenal. And his work habits, his competitiveness, and his ability to be a threat in every single situation. And Macklin was really noticeable when I scouted him first was going back to his time with Shattuck and their U18 prep team. And he was coming out of Bantam Major. So he jumped from Bantam Major to U18 prep, similar to Cole Eiserman. And so with Macklin, what was really noticeable in that U18 season was obviously not only the point production and the ability to be a threat in all situations and be a top line player for that Shattuck U18 team, but just the consistency derived in his game and derived in his habits. And with Macklin, he was such a consistent player in terms of his defensive details, his offensive details, his neutral zone consistency. There was a lot of different elements that were involved in his game that you knew you're going to be getting a consistent player when you're evaluating him every single game. And it was really unique to watch because the ability to link together his defensive habits to his offensive habits, it made him so special. And obviously, we see a lot of different centers, especially at this age. In order to become a well rounded center, part of it is linking the defensive game to the offensive game because usually offense starts from defense and being able to incorporate various elements, especially as a center, to be able to support low, to be able to support the defenseman, support the half wall, the strong side wingers, the weak side winger. Just the ability to link everything together was something that Macklin was able to do really well on that Shattuck team. And he was able to be really consistent when doing that, and it allowed him to be in better spots when he was handling pucks and he was getting retrieval situations coming out of D zone into the neutral zone, and how he was able to attack with speed going up ice was relentless. There was no player at that age and his age group that was able to match that intensity. And Cole Eiserman was on his line. Cole Eiserman was just as dominant of a goal scoring threat, and he was very consistent as well. But Macklin, the competitiveness within his defensive details and how relentless he is and was at that Shattuck U18 team when it came to chasing pucks and trying to force turnovers and trying to compete in corner battles and competing in so many different dirty situations that sometimes those players, those special players aren't necessarily willing to do sometimes, but with Macklin, he was able to do it all the time. And he's really unique given that natural center ability that he had. And obviously, given his ability to be a natural center and be a natural two-way center, you see a lot of well-roundedness in this game. There's obviously still a lot he has to improve upon in order to become an elite NHL player consistently over time. But with him right now, his game is very well-rounded. His game has a lot of different attributes that make him well-rounded. Not only the defensive habits, but the offensive game. He can be a dual threat player. He can be a shot threat. He can be a pass threat. He can pass through seams. He can pass through sticks. He can shoot through seams. He can shoot through sticks. He can shoot through pressure. He can shoot around pressure. He can shoot inside deception. So there's a lot of different layers inside his dual threat playmaking game that makes him a threat in many different ozone situations as well. And that natural center ability for him, I believe, has really allowed him to dominate positionally at every level that he's been at. Because, say, if he's a winger, sometimes wingers can get a little bit more leeway in their habits because they don't have as much responsibility all the time compared to centers. So centers naturally have more responsibility in D zone situations. Like I said, supporting low, supporting defenders, being able to link together the whole sequence per se. And so with Macklin being able to have that natural center ability from a young age is really key for him and really key for his development, how he's able to link together many different aspects of his game. And that was really awesome, especially with his time going back to the junior Sharks. Pretty ironic that he played with the San Jose Junior Sharks and now he's going to be playing with the actual Sharks team. But even with the San Jose Junior Sharks, still an actual center there, still playing the position while playing up as well. So, and he still dominated. And so, like I said, for him coming back to the San Jose area for the second time is really unique, given that the first time he was obviously playing with the Junior Sharks. There's not as many rinks around town down in San Jose. So the rinks at which you were at, there's very few, very slim amount. And hockey down in the San Jose area and down in the California area is not necessarily a big thing. It's still not necessarily a big thing, but with time and with players like Macklin who are going to come out of the area, there's going to be a lot more development for sure over the course of time when it comes to player development and being able to extensively reach a wide range of audiences. And the San Jose Junior Sharks program is probably going to take a big boost out of that as well. And it's been great to see how his game has trended from U14 San Jose Sharks, Junior Sharks to U14 with Shattuck to U18 Shattuck and beyond that point with Steele, BU, and how his game has really trended up really fast. And he's been a projected first overall pick and top pick in this 2024 class for quite some time. So it's no surprise that he's been able to get to where he's at now as a first overall pick. But at the same time, it's going to be really interesting to see how that moves forward for him and how he's able to compete in the Calder race next season because you got players like Michkov and you got some other 2023 picks who will probably be in the race for the Calder next season, 2022 guys, depending on their trajectory as well. Cutter Gauthier could be another guy who could really pop off next season. But with Macklin, I feel like there's going to be a lot of underrated value in terms of what he's able to bring because Macklin's a guy who he might not be the biggest offensive threat in his first season with the Sharks next year. And what the Sharks did, they did a good job of surrounding him or trying to at least surround him with some top nine acquisitions and some UFA signings and acquiring Tyler Toffoli in free agency. So acquiring some guys that can be a threat around Celebrini, which is nice. At the same time, it'll be interesting to see how Celebrini does in his first season. The consistency is going to come in his reps and his ice time. So the more ice time he's able to get, he's gonna get better line matchups, line rush pairings as well. And so it's going to be key for him in his development to be able to be paired with players that are like him and have that offensive trajectory for the Sharks next season. So it's going to be really important for the Sharks to really surround him with talent and be able to not necessarily. I bet there's going to be times where he might get third line ice time, he might get fourth line ice time, probably not as often given his the and given his ability and given his natural offensive ability, but sometimes there might be those situations that happen. And with Macklin, it's going to be really interesting to see how he fares in that first season, how his defensive details line up, how his offensive habits line up. And it could be a really early trajectory for him where he starts the season off on a high and he could go from there and really roll from there. And what's really interesting about Celebrini too is the competitive drive and the work habits, especially for a first overall pick. You think about how if a first overall pick is working that hard and he has that insane of a competitive streak already, how much better he can be than every other player. And the mindset shift, especially for that first overall pick, is just it's an inspirational factor because with Celebrini, he's going to provide a sense of energy and a sense of work habits for 18-year-old, it's going to be really unique for the Sharks to have next season. And it's going to be really unique for the players to learn off and build off of, and for the team to create a sense of camaraderie around that as well. So, but Celebrini, ever since his time with the Steel, you've heard a lot of stories about how competitive he is, his work habits, his intensity, not only in the gym, but on the ice as well. Like he's just a very intense when it comes to his development. He wants to get better all the time. He's really relentless when it comes to that. Obviously, his dad works with the Warriors. We know that, but just the internal sense of self and how he's able to manage that himself and how he's able to continuously get better is really remarkable. And that's going to be something that's going to be carried with him in his time in the NHL for sure. And it's going to be why he's going to be an elite player and why he's going to be so consistent for so many years. And he's going to be a top line player, top line center for the Sharks down the line as well, by far. It's not even close. And just imagine how much better and how much more well rounded he's going to be in the future because he's already personally said that he believes he can get better in every area. And that's really good for a young player like him to say that because he's not putting a ceiling on what he can be. He knows that he can do a lot more. He knows they can be a lot more consistent in so many different areas. And that mindset, that approach is really going to distinguish him from a lot of players. How he's going to be so consistent for the Sharks in the future as well. And say he was putting a limit on what he was doing right now, he's like, oh, I'm very well rounded already, and I work really hard already. There's not much improvement I need. They might stagnate off in that sense, but he knows and he understands that he needs to get better in all areas, and that's why he's another reason why he's going to be an elite player because he understands that there's everything he has to do in order to get better still. And the other thing that's really neat for him, especially as a center, the dual threat ability. The dual threat ability. So naturally, we see stereotypes for centers that they're more playmaking driven and more pass first driven. I don't necessarily see that as much with Celebrini. I see a dual threat game, a natural dual threat game, who's not afraid to shoot. He's not afraid to shoot as a center right away. He's not afraid to drive line rush by himself, entries by himself. He's not afraid to take shots. He doesn't necessarily shoot for the sake of shooting. He shoots from areas that he knows he can score in, and he shoots for the sake of scoring as well. He wants to score every time he's in the O zone, but he wants to be very selective with his shot patterning and how he's able to utilize it. He doesn't want to shoot when there's a lane that's clogged up and a defender right in front of him. He doesn't want to shoot without a purpose attached to it. He wants to shoot when there's a lane open. He wants to shoot inside a section. He wants to shoot with his hip pocket. He wants to shoot in an uncomfortable body position. So he's taken threats from many different angles and many different situations inside the offensive zone where for one, he's able to put himself in really good positions with the puck because he's so skilled and he has a natural talent with his puck skill that he can generate at high speed and high pace. At the same time, he can shoot inside those different elements. So he can shoot with the speed, he can shoot with the puck skill, he can shoot with the handling. He understands how to link these components together. It makes him such a dynamic shooter. He's such a threat, and that's why he's so good scoring in the USHL, why he's so good scoring with BU last year. He can shoot in a variety of ways, coming off the rush, come downhill, inside the offensive zone, obviously really key on a breakaway if you have them in those situations and many other different situations as well with Macklin, how he's able to utilize his dual threat ability and how he's able to translate that to his goal scoring. So his shot first ability and his knack to be a shot first player is really relentless. And the pass first game and the playmaking game is really noticeable as well. I remember there would be some times with the Steel when he was playing on the power play, and him and Jaden Perron at the time. Jaden Perron's a Carolina Hurricanes prospect, and him and Perron were so dynamic together in the power play and was unmatched because Celebrini would be able to find a seam to Perron, or it'd be likewise the other way, and both guys can shoot, both guys can pass. So you have those two guys in the face-off circle inside the offensive zone on the power play working together. It's so much easier for the two of them to really read off to each other and find those seams because they're so skilled as playmakers and shooters as well. So the shot mechanics with Celebrini are so special at this age. And there might be times next year where he tries to work and shoot inside deception around bigger defenders where it doesn't necessarily work right away. He might get knocked off pucks a little bit easier, but he's going to learn to adapt to that over time. And he's going to learn to link together the speed element with the hands element with the shot mechanics element as well, especially at the NHL level. And more centers nowadays, like Celebrini at younger ages, they're being taught more about shot mechanics and more about how to be a shot first player and how to utilize deception. And this is allowing many younger centers and players throughout the draft process to be better shot first players and have a better shot first mentality. And it's really unique for those players to have that and to be able to have different elements inside their shot linked together. And so when they have those different elements lined up, it allows them to have a better overall playmaking game. They understand the hockey sense inside their shot better, and they're able to understand, and it's able to expand upon to many different elements of their playmaking game and their passing game as well. So it helps their vision, it helps their awareness, it helps their ozone patterning. They're able to understand the flow of the game much better because they understand how to utilize the shot first mentality and the shot aspect of their game much better. And that's the thing with Celebrini, his playmaking is just as good as his shot. You're getting two really good intangibles and two really good abilities at that age that are really hard to find in a prospect. And last year, Connor Bedard was very similar in terms of how he was a massive threat with his goal scoring and also his playmaking, but he was also a slightly more shot first player. He wasn't afraid to take shots, especially as a natural center. This year with Celebrini, he's not afraid to take shots as well. He's very selective when it comes to shooting. He wants to shoot from key areas, from areas that he knows he has a better chance to score. And he's not going to shoot off the wall. He's not going to shoot off the point. He's not going to shoot outside high danger as often. He wants to be able to be a threat in those key situations and be able to utilize that shot aspect that he has in many key ozone situations and many different ozone dangerous areas as well.